Hello, everybody. Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. Riker,
Yep.
the crazy news has happened. DeMar DeRozan has been traded for Kawhi Leonard, and there's some crazy reasons that why DeMar DeRozan was traded. The Raptors have been shopping DeMar for the past 2 years, and they finally pulled the trigger on Kawhi Leonard.
Yep. Yeah, and there's been a lot of backlash too. Even players around the league, Paul George, Isaiah Thomas, DeRozan, they have all been very vocal about how disappointed, how upset they are with the franchise for being disloyal, for backstabbing, for, cutting a guy that has been, supremely giving to a franchise. And I can certainly see where they're coming from, but perhaps there's a bigger story, and that's what we're going to bring some light to.
Yeah. Well, the reason I think this happened, I don't think this trade was about Kawhi Leonard. Personally, I think the pieces just fell in place, and the Raptors had an opportunity to trade DeMar DeRozan. I think the Raptors have been looking to trade DeMar DeRozan rumors are out there that the Raptors are trying to move DeMar DeRozan. I think Masai Ujiri didn't want DeMar DeRozan to be the best player on the Toronto Raptors. And, this is shown in the way press conferences have gone, how rumors have been leaked, how, the Wiggins rumors that were always out there, and Jimmy Butler, trading for Jimmy Butler has been there. But in the place I noticed it most at the beginning of the summer was when Nick Nurse was introduced into his coaching presser, whatever. And he mentioned how he was really excited to work with Kyle Lowry in his game. And then he brought up how Jonas Valanciunas was one of his favorite players. And he named about 5 players, and DeMar DeRozan was not mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, that's a huge indication there. Also, another big point for me is I don't see how the comment can even be made that there's no loyalty or that it was taken by surprise when it was very clearly stated that all players were tradable on the Toronto Raptors, right? Especially the top guys. And with the trade talks being, going on for so long, I think it was probably more than expected that a big move was going to be made. But you said that Masai's been looking to trade him for 2 years. He's been looking to dump it. Is it contract-wise? I think personally, if you look at, of course, DeMar has been a fantastic regular season player. Of course, he's asserted himself as one of the top shooting guards in the league. Of course, he's worked on his game every single season, right? He's starting to develop that three-point shot, right? He's taking the mantle as both the leader of the team and the scoring option of the team. But I think still it's very obvious that he chokes. That might be a bit strong. He's not as consistent in the playoffs. He doesn't produce quite as well. He gets flustered when playoff-style defense is on him. His three-point shot still isn't quite developed. His defense still isn't amazing. I think really just it makes sense to get rid of DeMar. Even if Kawhi doesn't work out after this next year, it just makes sense to get rid of DeMar to trade up.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, because if the Raptors want success, we've seen the ceiling that DeMar DeRozan-led team can get you. A very strong regular season team, but he just struggles in the playoffs. And that's the issue with DeMar. And I think this last sweep, where he struggled a lot, he was thrown out his last game as a Raptor, just completely flustered. I think that was the last straw for the Raptors. Now, the thing about the loyalty comment, I 100% agree with you for most of your statements. How it was brought up that DeMar DeRozan was in trade rumors all summer. Nobody was off limits for the Raptors. I think the biggest problem that I think is very fair for people to have with loyalty issues with the Raptors is they said to DeMar that he wasn't going to be traded a week before this move happened. Okay. So they met at Summer League, and he told them directly that they weren't. Masai told him directly that they weren't going to move him, and then they eventually did. So that's an unfortunate thing that happened. But if you look at the other news that went into the summer, and I'm sure Masai Ujiri didn't know that they could probably get Kawhi Leonard. They probably weren't that deep into the talks. Yeah, that's an unfortunate thing about the loyalty side, but you mentioned it. The Raptors wanted to move on from DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, and it's not even like we were trading away DeMar DeRozan to a team like, I don't know, the Detroit Pistons. Yeah, the Kings. The Kings being the Atlanta Hawks. He's going to a well-established franchise. He's going to one of the best coaches in the league. They're going to be a playoff team. They're probably going to be a top 5 playoff team in the West. I'm calling it right now. he's going to still a positive situation. He'll have time left on his contract that he can develop with the San Antonio Spurs. He'll still be the number 1 or the number 2 option. I think that it's very natural for players to be upset, when they get traded, and to certainly have sort of bad taste in their mouth if they do feel blindsided. But it's not like, I think when the dust settles, he's going to just an equally positive environment where the people will rally behind him. He's going to a great coach. I don't see how this can be really a negative, completely negative for the Raptors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
it was time to move on. Too,
yeah, most definitely. The Raptors, it started to feel a bit stale, especially after the playoffs. The whole fan base just seems super disgruntled and, lack of motivation. People were saying that even if we get the first seed, we won't believe anything till we win a playoff series. But people have been comparing this to the Isaiah Thomas situation. I don't think this is nearly as bad as the Isaiah Thomas situation because we gave DeMar his money. We made sure DeMar was well compensated for playing, and obviously he came back to us and stuff. The Celtics traded Isaiah before he got his contract. They traded Isaiah after playing through the death of his sister, playing on a very cheap deal, and they didn't want to pay him. Mm-hmm. They traded him, and now Isaiah Thomas is making $2 million per year when he was lined up to make $200. The thing about, you mentioned it, DeMar DeRozan is going to a great franchise. He's getting paid, and he's going to have a successful career. Yeah. We didn't dump our superstar like the Celtics did to Isaiah.
No,
so
I agree. Yeah, the circumstances surrounding the Isaiah Thomas trade were certainly much worse, and you explained it in the last podcast that the picture painted against the Boston Celtics was very similar in terms of fans being completely upset on the way that the whole situation was handled. But now, after the success that they had with, bringing on Jason Tatum and his explosion in the playoffs, and Kyrie Irving throughout the regular season, the success they had bringing Cleveland to 7, the whole narrative has changed. Everybody is high on Boston once again. They believe that they're probably the best team in the East. I think it could be very similar to the Raptors as well. I think once people sort of get over the initial shock that a major player, a big name, the number 1 guy on a team was traded away, once they get over the fact that that doesn't happen very often in the league, then they'll start to accept that this probably was a better move.
Yeah.
But the next thing, do you have we'll just jump into this point here. People are calling for DeMar DeRozan's jersey to be retired. Do you think that his stats, his legacy, his gameplay, do you think that any of that merits his jersey being retired? Where does he stack? Where does he stack as best Raptors?
I think without a doubt, his jersey has to be retired. He led the Raptors to as farther than we've ever gone before in the playoffs. We mentioned he brought the team from the ground up. If you remember where we were when DeMar DeRozan came in, especially his second year after Chris Bosh left, we were just atrocious, and he made it his mission to bring us to the top, bring us to an Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously we got knocked out by LeBron, and we didn't have crazy playoff success, but it's been by far the best stretch of Raptors. I think, without a doubt, Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan's jerseys need to be retired, especially DeMar DeRozan, because he was here the whole time. I think retirement for DeMar is necessary.
Kyle Lowry, I don't know.
He's definitely
that's
a top two
take.
jersey.
He's definitely top 2. I think that, we lost Vince Carter a little bit before. I think that he could have blossomed into an absolutely complete player. It was unfortunate that he left when he did. Chris Bosh, same thing. He took off for Miami. He probably could have even been better. He was still leaving in his best days. Perhaps DeMar has more days under him, but I feel like he sort of went through his entire useful life as the Raptors, and his last couple seasons, you're right. He brought the Raptors to all the best records that they had, the longest playoff stretches that they had, and he was the number 1 guy for all of them. He's accumulated over 13,000 points. He's had his best seasons, consistently year after year. He's brought the Air Canada Centre from being that dismal team that barely sells out games because it's an entirely European roster and they suck and they can barely win to sold out games, and it's super exciting. So his legacy will go down as definitely one of the best Raptors. I think that you're right. He definitely deserves his name to go up in the bleachers. Not this season. He'll definitely be very upset. He probably wouldn't attend, but like I said, dust settles. Yeah. I think he'd be honored.
Most definitely. But don't disrespect the Linus Kleza and the Rajo Nesterovic days, Riker. Don't disrespect those. But no, in all seriousness, he deserves to have his jersey retired. He did so much for the franchise, but I think the Raptors knew this was the time to move on from DeMar DeRozan, and this trade wasn't about getting Kawhi Leonard. It was about getting a player where you trade up in value, and then even if Kawhi Leonard leaves, you're sending DeMar to a good situation, and you can really rebuild. Because when Masai came in, DeMar DeRozan wasn't his guy, right? He was a Brian Colangelo guy, and I think Masai Ujiri really wants to really put his stamp on the team and see what an OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam-led team could look like.
Yeah, I agree. And leave room for the free agency. And I think any fan that disputes that, if you've made it this way to the finals, this portion of the podcast, I think you really do need to consider that we've had 4 good playoff pushes now with Kyle and DeMar, and we've come up short every single time, right? And you can't honestly expect that the outcome would have changed this season or the next season. So I think this was certainly the right move.
Yep, especially with the improved East.
Yeah.
But let us know what you guys think. Was this trade more about getting Kawhi or trading DeMar DeRozan? Was it the right move? What's DeMar's legacy as a Raptor? Let us know in the comment section below. You're the best for listening this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. You guys are the best.
Cheers.